everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Woodmere Estate Revival. Today we are working on a custom redwood countertop for the desk in the solarium. When we were first working on this house, we dismantled a porch on the back of the house, and it was built entirely out of redwood posts, redwood beams. It was a really nice porch when it was first completed. And thankfully, because of the durability of redwood, a lot of that wood was still in really good shape. So we were able to keep it and actually have had it for the last several years, just kind of racked up down the road. And now we're finally finding a good use for it. I had planned on building some benches, maybe a picnic table, something like that out of it. May still do that, but we're going to use part of the redwood to build a countertop for our desk unit in the solarium. So let me show you exactly what we're getting into and how we're going to get this project started. So this is one of our pieces of redwood, and I know it doesn't look like much. It's got a bunch of old paint on it, and it's got nail holes and all sorts of stuff in it. But trust me, when you see this stuff stripped down and finished, it's going to be gorgeous. I've got a piece over here that we cut off the other day. We were playing around with it, and there you can really get a sense of the graining on this wood. Look how tight that grain is. Redwood is so dense, it's so tight, that grain is real tight. It's one of the things that makes it last a long time, and it's really, really pretty. So we took a piece that had been laying out in the weather just like this, so the end was all weather checked, and then cut it off and gave us a clean edge, and you can see how pretty that is. Amber's working on a piece over here. This is, she's been working with some stripper, because what we're gonna have to do is strip the paint off of 3 sides, and we're going to take the wood out to a buddy's house. He does a lot of woodworking, and he's got a big plane, and he's going to run, I don't know how big it is. I'm thinking it's at least 13, 14 inches, big planer, and it's a power planer, so he's going to take these boards and run them through for us and give us a real nice finish, or a nice face to work with. And then we've got a joiner that I borrowed from my dad, and if my buddy doesn't run the edges through for us, he may, but if he doesn't, then we'll go ahead and run the edges through the joiner, and then that way we've got real clean edges to go ahead and joint these up. We're going to take 3 of these boards. These are about 9 1/4 inches wide, so they're 1 by 10s, and so 3 of those. We'll take a little bit off, of course, to dress up the edges. So we'll probably end up with something around 8 3/4, 9 inches in that neighborhood. That's going to give us about 27 inches to play with. Our cabinets are 24 inches deep, so we can have about 1.5 inch overhang. So that's going to look really nice. So what I'm doing tonight is cutting them to approximate length. We need 6 feet of board, so I'm cutting them to approximate length. I'm going to leave it a little long on both ends, and that way we can get them edge jointed, and then once everything's dry, we'll go ahead and cut it to perfect length. And then we'll take a router and we'll dress up the edge, do a nice round over on it, soften up the edge. It's gonna look really cool. So first things first, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut the ends off. Take about 1 inch off of this end, and then measure down here, see how much we've got. If I can, I'll probably go ahead and cut all of this off, because this definitely has some rot around these nail holes. So I'll probably go ahead and cut those off. I'm not too worried about nail holes. I mean, that's part of the neat thing about using reclaimed wood. You get old nail holes and that sort of thing. And so whatever is left after the planing process and everything, we'll just fill with some epoxy and then sand it down smooth with the rest of the wood. That's gonna be some nice character, and it's gonna be a great story to tell when people are looking at this. Where did this come from? And we'll say, this is part of the original house, something that we saved. So kind of a neat thing. So let me go ahead and get this cut up here, and then I've got 2 more big pieces out in the truck, and we'll go ahead and get those drug over here and get them cut to length as well. So there's what it looks like with a clean edge. You can see where the nails went in there and left some rust stain. Again, that's character. We're not trying to make a perfect piece. We're trying to make a piece that's functional, but also tells a story. So I got both ends squared up and cut that bad section off the other end here. Look how pretty that grain is. Look how tight that is. That's gonna be gorgeous. All right, so this piece is done. I'm gonna go ahead and go around the house there and grab the other two, get them cut up as well. Okay, so here's the 3 boards we're gonna use to make our countertop, and ignore the dirty pallet. that was in the yard. It had one of those super sacks of sand on it, and I've been trying to clean up around here as I've had a little bit more time, but so yeah, ignore that. But anyways, this stack of lumber right here, as disgusting as it looks, is going to turn into a beautiful countertop for our office. So I'm super excited to show you all the transformation. Today, Amber is going to rack these up on some sawhorses and take the paint stripper to them and strip as much of this off as she can before we hand them over to my buddy to be run through the planer and joiner and get them all squared up, trued up, and ready to be glued together. You got to take the paint off. We found that out the hard way trying to use the joiner that my dad loaned us. This paint dulled those blades in a heartbeat. I mean, the first time we ran it through, it was spitting out chips. We're like, yeah, this is gonna work great. And then it just quit working, started making dust. So we found out the hard way that this paint has a lot of metals and grit, abrasives, you know, to make the pigment, and it will kill a set of blades in no time flat. So, what's up, Mr. Slug? Never know what you might find around here. So anyways, so we're excited to see these when they come back from my buddy's house. He's gonna pick them up tomorrow evening for us and run them through his equipment and then bring them back, and they're gonna look completely transformed. So I will show you guys everything when we get those back. So we got a huge pile of chips here next to our joiner, and that's a good sign. That means we've done a lot of cleanup work on the edges of our planks of redwood. And as you can see, we've got them laid out on the clamps over here, the pipe clamps. And we looked at the faces and we looked at the edges and tried to figure out which ones we liked the best. So this is the way it's going to go together. Cool thing is you can see the old nail, the stains around the nails, where the nails were. So that's really cool. So we got those kind of lined up there, and then this one's staggered. And then once we get it all glued together, we'll go ahead and get the edges trimmed off. And we're going to put a round over bit in our router and round over the top and the bottom to give it a nice smooth feel. And then we'll get the whole thing all sanded down, stained, and polyed, and it'll be ready for installation. This redwood is neat. I mean, look how straight that grain is. I mean, just laser straight. It's beautiful wood. It's tight and super straight. Even the knot holes look cool. I mean, they're just really smooth, really tight. Beautiful wood. So it's going to make a really neat piece. It's got a lot of history. We're going to be able to tell a story every time somebody looks at it and be like, hey, where'd that come from? We'll be able to say, this was part of the back porch, the original back porch. So it's going to be a neat conversation piece and a nice addition to the office there. Give the house a bit of history. Since so much of the original stuff was ripped out and thrown away because it was just rotten and ruined, it's neat to have a little bit of the history of the house in our office countertop. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything lined up, put a couple of reference marks on there, and I'm going to go ahead and put the glue to it and get her clamped up. So we are glued up. It's always intense trying to get stuff glued together. Use this tight bond number 2. The only issue is the fast set time. I should really get a different version of tight bond. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. You're happy that it sets up quickly because less clamp time and less working time, but at the same time, it's so stressful because you're trying to get stuff to go together and you're trying to get stuff to line up, and it's starting to tack up on one end before you get the other end clamped, and So anyways, I do this to myself. But at any rate, we got a good clamp, and looks like I've got really good adhesion all along this entire piece. So this stuff is going to be rock solid. So we're gonna let this set up, and then we'll knock the clamps off and start getting it sanded down, cut to the proper length, route some edges on it. It's gonna be beautiful. Can't wait to see that thing installed.